I've been talking a lot about The Rock and that whole WrestleMania 41, crash and burn, and how disappointing the show was. And that's been a lot of my content when it comes to wrestling on here. People seem to like it. I want to shift over to something a bit more positive. I want to talk about an angle that I am interested in, and that is Paul Heyman with Seth Rollins and the closing angle for Raw, where we find out that his newest client is Braun Breaker. Now, what's funny about this is that, Braun Breaker reminds me a lot of Brock Lesnar, super athlete, just an absolute, incredible display of speed and strength. And he is a Steiner. I mean, he's the son of Rick Steiner and the nephew of Scott Steiner, the next in the bloodline of that family. And he was revealed to be Heyman's new guy. When I was watching WrestleMania, and I had a feeling Dominic was going to win the Intercontinental, and I remember telling the people I was watching it with that it could be a possibility for Braun Breaker to go and move up to main event status. Now, I wasn't sure when that would happen because you could always have a situation where Braun Breaker is chasing Dominic Mysterio. You can have him wrestle other guys in the mid card in the meantime. But no, they stuck him in there with the Wolves in the final segment. Now, I saw some people complaining that CM Punk was made to look bad in that segment. I disagree with that. I think it's a heel beatdown. I think Punk came out there ready to fight. Seth kept laying him down, but I mean, that's what a heel should do. If you've got the baby face down, keep hitting him with curb stomps. The Seth Rollins CM Punk feud is going to end up being a classic, just like how the Punk Drew McIntyre feud is, because it's going quite some time. They've delivered on the promos, and there's enough twists and turns to keep things interesting. Yeah, I feel like the WrestleMania finish where Heyman turned on both Roman and Punk and joined up with Seth was predictable, but predictable is not always bad because in reality, it was the most interesting thing they could have done. We're seeing Heyman with somebody outside of Punk, outside of Roman Reigns, being added to his already impressive list of clients. When you look at the greatest managers in the history of wrestling, my number one has always been Bobby the Brain Heenan, right? And two and three was usually between Cornette and Heyman. I think because Cornette's been retired for a while and Heyman's still in the game and he's involved in so many big angles, Heyman to me is a solid number two. However, with now Roman, Brock, he managed Rick Rude at one time, Steve Austin, Taz, Sabu. Heyman has managed, and I have a whole list. I might do a whole video on just the greatest managers, but this guy might end up being number one. And that's hard because Bobby the Brain Heenan, even Heyman and Cornette themselves would tell you that Bobby Heenan was the greatest manager of all time. But Heyman is up there. Now, we didn't get an answer as far as why he betrayed Roman and Punk. He did reveal on the Pat McAfee show that he was pissed off that he was being seen like objectified and that Punk was sort of using him to turn on Roman. But that's not really like a good enough reason. But he's with Seth now, which is a new coat of paint on Seth Rollins. But now we've got Braun Breaker, the enforcer of the team. So it'll be Seth and Braun Breaker against Roman and Punk. And we'll probably get more Seth versus Punk singles matches, as well as a very interesting Braun Breaker versus Roman Reigns match. I look forward to that. See, this storyline in the main event scene, I am way more interested in than the Cody Cena thing because of the botchery that happened at WrestleMania. Now, they can still fix the Cody storyline. This can still be fixed. I believe Cody is booked for tonight's SmackDown. So I think we may get some story progression there. But I feel like this is more interesting because we're literally witnessing the rise of Braun Breaker. And I said a long time ago that I I predicted that Braun Breaker and Jacob Fatu would both be WrestleMania main eventers in the next 5 years. Looks like it may actually be sooner than that. The spear that Braun Breaker gave Roman when he cut him off was incredible. Braun Breaker has the best spear in the business. No disrespect to Goldberg or Edge or Roman Reigns, but Braun Breaker, he looks like he kills you. And in some cases, he probably does. So this to me is nothing but a positive for Braun Breaker. He's already a decent talker, but with Heyman with him, I think it'll add layers to his character. He could be like the new Brock, the big monster, athletic monster. And I want to talk about this whole dangerous alliance thing. People online and in different spaces have been stating that this is the beginning of a new stable, a new group of wrestlers under Paul Heyman, that Seth and Braun Breaker are just two of them, that they could add more, like, for example, maybe a Drew McIntyre or somebody else. Now, let's just keep it a buck here. The Judgment Day is close to splitting up. We know that Finn Balor is going to eventually feud with Dominic. The seeds have been planted for quite some time. You're a fool if you don't think that's happening. And then the bloodline is pretty much over. Solo has become kind of a non-factor. They didn't even put him on WrestleMania against Randy Orton. So, I mean, he had the ball last year. He wasn't really able to capture, that special it factor that Roman has. Jacob Fatu sort of outclasses Solo Sikoa, but to me the bloodline angle is over. I mean, when Rock put the Ula Fala on Roman the first Raw of the year and killing that potential storyline, at least for now, who knows, man. Dwayne, don't even get me started. But what I was going to say was, yeah, the bloodline angle's pretty much over. When the OG bloodline at War Games with Punk beat the new bloodline, that's pretty much it. The bloodline's not really a force to be reckoned with anymore. The TV is not centered around them anymore. It wasn't like how it was when Roman was on all the TV and they would do those backstage vignettes with the Usos and Sami Zayn. Roman is now a definitive part-timer, and that sucks because I thought he was only going to be a part-timer temporarily and then come back as a full-time guy. I'm not so sure that's going to happen. I'm really not. So with the bloodline being over, they're going to need to maybe come up with a new stable, because if they're going to do War Games this year, and Survivor Series this year is just called Survivor Series San Diego. It's going to be from a baseball stadium. So they might not do War Games this year. Maybe they'll do the old school Survivor Series elimination matches. But if they do War Games, they're going to need a new stable. And so with Paul Heyman recruiting guys, that could be the new stable. Maybe bring in a Becky Lynch who just turned heel. There's no problem having a woman in the group. Judgment Day had Rhea Ripley and right now has Liv Morgan. So you can have groups that have both men and women in it. Who would I put in Heyman's stable? Who do I think needs it? That's I would bring up somebody from NXT. I don't know about Trick Williams. I think Obafemi might fit better with Heyman, but we've already got a monster in Braun Breaker. Maybe like Andrade could be in the group because he hasn't really done much since coming back, and the guy has a ton of potential. He's been the one guy who's come back from AEW that really hasn't done very well, and he hasn't been booked very well. So I think Andrade is a good choice for the group. Freshen him up a bit. And I think another good choice would be All Ego Ethan Page. If they're going to bring him up to the main roster, he could be like the Randy Orton of the group, the cocky upstart guy who is young and has a lot of skills and already thinks he's a world champion. So if they add Andrade and Ethan Page along with Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker, you've got a pretty good group right there, and then maybe Becky Lynch if they want. Let me know in the comments who you would add to Heyman's stable. Like, pick a couple guys or girls if you want. I'm curious to see what you think would be a good addition, who you think would benefit from being with Paul Heyman, and who would be called up to, if necessary, to be a part of the group. Or maybe you don't think that he needs a group. I just feel like, you might as well go with it, and you might as well use Heyman and use his skills to get young talent over and have them run roughshod all throughout 2025. So, yeah, let me know in the comments.